Hi, so this is our first charity organisation connector interview for Smell of Roses, and I'm really delighted that our first interview is Kate from Therapeeze. So Kate, would you like to explain a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I am Kate. I live in the northeast, and I have been an occupational therapist for 12, 13 years. I began my career in early intervention psychosis service, but when I qualified as an OT. Before I became an OT, I've got a degree in forensic psychology, and then I went down the route of I started working with autistic children. And I went down the route of speech and language, and so I've got a postgraduate in speech and language difficulties, but then I decided that wasn't for me. That just wasn't my bag. So then I got involved with an OT and sensory integration, and that's what made me go and do my master's in occupational therapy. So like I say, I left and I worked with in the community with psychotic people for 6 months. But the reason I went into OT was because of my love for working with children with additional needs and autism. So I moved into a career of working with adults on the autistic spectrum, and they had comorbid mental health and learning disabilities. So I covered 4 services in the northeast, travelling across the unit, supporting adults to be able to manage their sensory motor needs and engage in any kind of functional tasks that they want to do, whether that was work or whether it was having their lunch. So there was a lot of involvement with service development in that kind of area because OT was quite a new profession within the company. So then I moved on from working with the adults, and then I started specialising with children and adolescents. And I was based in a school, a specialist school, with children who were severe to profound learning disabilities and on the autism spectrum. So this again was a new challenge for me to grow on my skills, and I loved it. So again, I kind of developed the service within there. I became a behavioural intervention lead. So I ran a team of multidisciplinary professionals to understand the functions of a behaviour and get the correct intervention there for the child to be able to support them effectively. So I love that, and then I went to work for a private occupational therapy clinic, and that was pure sensory integration treatment, and that was it was just amazing to see the impact that sensory integration treatment can have. Because when you look at it, you just think, well, that just looks like a really good place to play. But the impact of actually the science behind our play, it was amazing, and the response that we got from families was amazing. So, and then because of health conditions, I have an autoimmune issue that was just flaring up after flare up after flare up. I decided just to take a break from paediatrics for a while, and I went to work with adults with mental health issues who were unemployed. And once I was in there for about 4 months, I just thought, this isn't for me. I want to go back to paediatrics. And then I fell pregnant. so I stayed there for a while. And that was a year ago. So my little girl's now 1. And when I was going to finish maternity, that was what encouraged me to move into self-employment area. So,
wow, you've had an incredibly diverse career.
I have very much so. I've worked with such varied people with the barriers to be able to function, and that's what's kind of drawn me to where I am, because there's been pros and cons to every service that I work in, you know, whether it's barriers within the NHS and the restrictions in there, or whether it's the expensive price tags of private practice and actually being able to give the support to families that you feel you should be able to do. You know, there's pros and cons to all of them, but that's kind of what's gave me the focus to where I am today, really.
So then what is it you're doing today? Tell us a bit more about therapy.
So what happened was I decided to go self-employed beginning of 2020 this year. So I handed my notice in, and then about 2 weeks later, national lockdown happened.
Oh, no.
And I thought, okay, so now I haven't got a job. My maternity leave's finishing. what am I going to do? Because at the time we thought we can't be in this for very long. But then I thought, but what if we are in this for very long? So I started a free Facebook group. And the Facebook group was purely just to help. I just thought, what can I do at this time of crisis to support people? And so I set up a group for parents with children with additional needs. And I was just giving informal advice or anything that I was coming across, free training that just would help support parents during this time. And during that time, I was talking to parents, and there was so many issues coming up in relation to, well, I've been waiting for 3 years for OT and I've still not got an appointment, or I saw an OT and they just gave me these activities, but that hasn't helped. I can't afford private practice. I even spoke to parents over in the USA who they change OTs depending on the age of the child where this parent lived. So and then I said, have you got a home program? And she said, what's a home program? So there was all these kind of things. I thought that there's so many barriers in relation to services for parents to access, that I thought, what can I do to support parents and kind of use my skills effectively, which is where I came up with Therapeeze. So the concept behind the name is Therapeeze Made Easy. And what I've set up is it's all an online company, really. So I do the typical occupational therapy role. So I do assessments of sensory motor skills and mental health and treatment. So I can do treatment online as well. But also I've set up a membership scheme. So the membership scheme is really for parents to access therapeutic activities and therapeutic resources, no matter where they are, what they're doing, what situation they're in. Because I always refer to it as seasons of life. And I always think, you know, at the one point when there's been an OT assessment done, that child could have hormones kicking in a year later, and the support that the parent needs is totally changed. So the concept behind the membership was so that parents can just access them no matter what kind of barriers are coming up or what situation they're facing. There'll be some strategies there for them. So when I've just developed a screening tool for parents so that they can look at where the barriers are, and then that guides them through the database so that they make sure that they're not just logging on and thinking, well, I'll just randomly try this therapeutic program. It actually kind of guides them to ones that they should do. So on there, there's resources that are printable, there's videos, an activity library video, there's actually blocks of treatment as well, so that they can do a block of treatment in home and they get all the resources that they need. And then in the higher level, they actually just get me delivering the treatment. So all they've got to do is press play, and then they can do the activity with their children at home. And it's just to make it much more accessible, but as well to really support the skill development, because, you know, the demands of appointments and getting to appointments, and it takes all of that difficulty away. And as well, it's not the expensive price tag, but as well, it's just that OT support that families need, but don't always get on the NHS, and depending on where you live really does depend on what you get with OT services. So that's kind of the main. There is the provision I do as well for schools out there. So I write curriculums, therapeutic curriculums that can be directly integrated into the classroom rather than pulling children out. So the schools get the similar package to parents, but obviously in a school format. So they get IEPs and lesson plans and resources and videos and everything that they need to just deliver a therapeutic activity in the classroom. Because particularly now more than ever, children really need that support to look after their well-being, even if they haven't got some form of formal diagnosis. And I think also a lot of children that I've worked with over the years have been the children that perhaps have fallen through the gaps of services. You know, they're not reaching the threshold to get a diagnosis, so that means that they don't get any extra support, although their behaviour is still really challenging, and it's really challenging for the parents. And I just think this is that avenue that can really support those children and the families to be able to do it. And because it is a very holistic view, that I've got a powerful parent series on the family membership as well. So that looks at kind of giving the you know, anxiety management strategies for parents, and behaviour management of techniques to cope with challenging behaviour, and all those kind of things, because having a child with additional needs obviously impacts on the whole family unit, and a lot of services just focus on the child that they're treating, and I just wanted to make it much more holistic. So I'm very busy, but I love it.
It sounds amazing. And I mean, I think it's amazing and fantastic that you had this idea right before lockdown.
I know.
And then you've had to completely change what you're doing.
Yeah.
So drastically and so quickly, but it sounds like you've got it and you're doing it. So what kind of feedback have you been getting from the parents?
It's been amazing, because I mean we saw any of our memberships are in an online private Facebook page, so they've always got access to asking an occupational therapist kind of, I've got this problem, what can I do? But the feedback has been so amazing, because it's such a new approach to really kind of letting parents access services, that they're so overwhelmed sometimes, you know, just to think like, I can't believe this is accessible to me, to be able to deliver it in such a smoother way, you know, seamlessly kind of, and that was the aim. And as well, just to make sure that you're focused, we always try and provide a very family-centered approach, and just really treat every family as an individual family, and we're not one of these companies that, you know, a brush that every family is the same, or every child with this diagnosis is the same, because they're not. So the feedback has been so positive, and I'll not lie, there was apprehensions, you know, with parents to think, well, is this going to be effective for my child, or is it going to be effective for our family, and will it help me support my child to do their self-care and things? But there's so much access on there, and I love developing. My creativity brain has just took over lockdown, and I've got so many different kind of programs, and they are so adaptable dependent on the child's needs, because as well I integrate using visuals of widgets, or for the visual learners. I've got all the resources in there, so it isn't just for those with language and literacy and cognition. It is for those who maybe are visual learners and are non-verbal communicators. So I really have adapted them. And I think that's been the key, because they are adaptable, and because they can access us at any point to ask us a question. That's been a great benefit for them, because trying to get hold of any NHS therapist to ask for some direct advice, it can often be a challenge.
I was just going to ask you that, because a lot of the time, you know, to access other services can take months and sometimes years. And so is the access instant from you? Is there a waiting list? How does that work?
No, so the membership scheme's instant access. There's a welcome video with me on that kind of explains kind of the process of where to find the pre and post measure. And then they can go through, there's lots of different files in there, so there might be sensory motor files and anxiety management files, so that it's free. I've tried to make it as simple as possible, because I'm not one of these high-tech people that likes complicated systems. So once you log in, it is just simple, labelled, and then all the resources are under those files. So it's not that you're bombarded with lists and lists and lists. And the programs are under specific ones. So some examples of the programs I've done self-compassion through stories. So it looks at kind of mental well-being using stories, and then helping children to really kind of relate that to themselves through the activities afterwards. I've done a basically basketball series for gross motor skills. So a gradual development of gross motor, and the fluency of gross motor helps the fluency of handwriting. So if children have difficulties with handwriting, that's the functional outcome. So I've made a basketball one. I'm developing a pet therapy, integrating that into one at the moment. And I've done a Lego Express, where it's all about social emotional expression using Lego. So I think outside the box. It's not just kind of those stereotypical thread and beads kind of activities you might find on Pinterest.
Wow, it sounds amazing. You really sound like you are an outside the box thinker, and I love that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But
So
and you know, and it's good, you know, and it's all for the children to benefit them. That's the top and bottom of why I do what I do. And I just think not all children are going to love those stereotypical activities, but I've worked with teenagers who've loved playing basketball with me. So why not turn it into a program that parents can support the children with?
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Where can we find the information about you and the amazing, fantastic services that you offer?
So I've got the website, which is www.therapeeze.com, and on there there's links to our Instagram and Facebook. But we're on Facebook, so it's Therapeeze, Therapy Tools to Thrive. And there's also a free Facebook group that's linked, and it's occupational therapy tips and tricks. So in there, I just share lots of information and guidance for parents as well. So I'm not a Twitter person, so we're not on there.
So what's the future for Therapeeze?
Oh my goodness, well my brain works overtime. So there's so much. I want to really I love making the programs and the curriculums for children, and I love just using therapeutic activities as therapy. So there's always those in development, and obviously Christmas is coming up, so we're currently doing a Christmas bundle to really support the parents over the festive period, because Christmas can be a challenging time for a lot of children with additional needs. So we're doing a lot around that. Also, hopefully at some point next year is the plan that I would like to develop another provision for families for postpartum and new babies and child development. With me being a new mum, I've used a lot of my OT skills to cope with being a new mum, I suppose, and adjust my life and, you know, life balance, and manage any anxieties about, is my child going to cry when I go out today? And, you know, so there's those kind of activities. I'd love to kind of move into the postpartum mental health and really support mums, whilst obviously continuing to support schools and families. That's my long-term goal. That's the other provision I'd love to begin.
Yeah, you sound very busy, but it all sounds so great. And I've really loved getting to know you more and hearing more about what you do. So thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. And so I will pop some of the links and stuff in the comments at the bottom, and so please check out all her information and all the different places that you can find her, and contact her for information. I'm sure some of you will need her services. So thank you, Kate, again.
Thank you very much.